181. I'm joined by my special co-host, Courtney Harden from the Real Deal podcast, and we're joined by special guest, Burt Watson. Obviously, he's done work in the UFC business for 15 years, and also he was a former manager for legendary boxer Joe Frazier. So I'm excited for this interview, and we're going to get into all of that. But first of all, Burt, how are you and your family doing so far during this new year? And it's truly an honor that you came on the show today.
What's up, baby? I appreciate it, man. Everybody's fine. We're just kind of going through, listening to the science and the medical people and just kind of going through what the world is and where the world is today, I checked on my grandkids today because I got 5 of them.
Wow.
I checked on them today and they're all good and, everything's good. Everything's lovely, baby.
So I'll let Courtney start it first.
Well, thanks for coming on, and thank you, Nathan, for letting me ride shotgun on this one. I'm on his show today, so I'm the co-host today. But yeah, thanks for coming on to the show. Start from the beginning. How did you get into the business of coordinating, managing? Start right from the beginning.
Y'all had to tag team me. Y'all couldn't handle me one at a time. You have to tag team.
Yeah, yes.
Okay? It's okay. I'm from Philly. Okay, so okay. I'm used to that kind of group stuff. You know what I mean? But no, it's been a great ride in my life, and I started earlier in years in my life. Everything that has happened to me, and I say this because I say it to everybody, especially kids and athletes and those who are looking to become either collegiate athletes or professional athletes. Everything is hard work, determination, and a lot of chance meetings. Those things are just going to happen. But when they happen, you got to be ready for it. You got to be right. I met Joe Frazier on a chance meeting, a fluke, just walking down the street and, him in a vehicle someplace and there was a car accident and he jumps out and I see it's him and we're standing there because the traffic couldn't move. And I'm realizing that it was Joe Frazier. So, you know what? Using my experience, which was running my mouth and my personality and all that stuff that I got from my mom, that I grew up with, I introduced myself. And, that was the chance meeting. And, we just kind of stayed connected and we grew a friendship and communicated. And back then, it was a lot harder than it is today. Because we didn't have these cell phones and we didn't have internet. I don't think I knew what a computer was.
Right.
So, it was integrity. It was word of mouth. When you said to somebody, "I'll see you next Tuesday at 9:00," you needed to be there next Tuesday at 8:30. But you lived up to your word. So, our communications, I'm not going back into the prehistoric days before telephone and all that kind of
stuff.
Right. Yeah, telephone, but the lines of communications were not as technical as it is today. Mm-hmm. So we stayed in touch and we communicated and, kind of got a relationship. And, as a matter of fact, my very first boxing experience, I grew up in the era when Joe Louis and Rocky Marciano and those guys were on the radio. You really didn't see it on television, but you saw it on the radio. And so I grew up in that era, but I always liked, sports. I always did like boxing. And then, of course, being from Philadelphia didn't hurt, because you had to know how to throw. You had to know how to use your hands, baby.
Right.
So that really kind of helped a little. And so I always had, an interest in it. And my very first major boxing event was March 8th, 1971. which I'm also now dating myself. That I was able to go into a place that they had liquor in March 8th, 1971.
Wow.
All right. So, I'm dating myself, but that's okay. I'm good with that. But it kind of just went from that on, from March 8th, 1971 to on through to 1981, keeping communications, and him being Smoking Joe Frazier, having his last fight in 1981, I think it was against Jumbo Cummings, but the friendship and the real connection was that he was in Philly and I was in Philly, or that I was from Philly, right? But still had the Philly connection because my mom and dad both were still alive at the time and were in Philadelphia. So there was a definite connection there, but we just kind of kept that together and, started hanging out and hanging around, and which was kind of tough for me to do because I was trying to keep up with Joe Frazier. Right. It's Joe Frazier at anything, baby. Right. And it kind of got to a point that we were hanging out at some point, and I had to say to him, listen, man, you got to do one or two things. You got to either hire me or leave me the hell alone. I couldn't do both. Right. I just couldn't do both. So, one thing led to another, and I was hired and went on through with him and his family and his gym and his career after his boxing career. Because at that point, the point of his career was to make a living off of his name in personal appearances and things like that. And if there were two people in that time frame that didn't have a problem making something off of their name, was Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali. Ooh, yeah. So that was not a hard thing to do.
Right.
So that we did that, and that happened. And he also had sons and nephews and a daughter, as everybody knows, boxing. So in working with him, I learned and I honed my skills as a coordinator, because we had a ton of boxers, and we had the availability or access to, because he was Joe Frazier.
Right. We
had the access to a lot to venues and television networks. So that is where I honed my skills to becoming a coordinator. It was trial by error. It was we got fighters, and we gotta find a way to keep them busy, and keeping them busy was making fights for them. So we did it. And in the process of doing that, Burt Watson started coming out, and it started developing and learning how to coordinate. And as a coordinator, it kind of just, once you did that, the basics of a coordinator are always the same. The fluff around it might be different. Yeah. In 2008, I actually did the Latin billboards. And I did that with two other people. And that was a massive undertaking, but I did it as a coordinator. So once you learn how to coordinate events and coordinate things like that, like I said, the basics were the same. The fluff was a little different. So I learned and I honed my skills, and it worked, and it caught the attention of other promoters, like Don King and Lou Duva and Bob Arum and HBO Sports and USA Today. The networks were hiring, and I got gigs with them, and they were calling me. So it kind of just snowballed into just becoming a coordinator and coordinating events. And I did that with Joe until about 1996, when I really started getting good business as a coordinator.
Right.
And it went on from coordinating events in Atlantic City and New York and possibly Detroit to Las Vegas and Chicago. And then that stuff started jumping on a plane out of the country, you know, and it kind of started to grow a little. It grew a lot. And I got the experience of working with just about, if I were to ask you to name any fighters from say 1980 to 1992 maybe, or 90, yeah, I'll say 90, 95.
Right.
I've worked with every one of them.
Wow.
I bet, like, you know,
the only person that I can honestly say that I haven't worked with is Lennox Lewis. But everybody else, you know, I mean,
Evander Holyfield, Tyson, all those guys. Yep.
De La Hoya, Costa Zoo, Zab Judah,
yeah.
Tito Trinidad, you know, male and female. Christy Martin, Layla Ali, Jacqueline Frazier-Lyde, and I did Ali Frazier 4, which was the fight between the two daughters.
Yep.
So, you know, that kind of kept me in the loop, and, you know, kind of kept me busy. But at the same time, I had to perform, baby.
Right.
You know, because as it grew and as I became busier, then the need for perfection was huge. Okay, there was no left or right, but I was good with that, because I came from a very, you know, I had 6 brothers and 1 sister, and my mom was, if you can imagine it, my mom's personality was 3 times mine. If you can imagine that. Okay. So that's the way we grew. That's the way we grew up.
Yeah.
You learned how you didn't get out of your bed unless you made it up. You learned how to make a bed up before you got out of it.
Right.
You learned how to iron your clothes and wash your clothes first and iron them before you put them on. And you learned how to fold them up and put them together. And that, you know, I'm saying that because all that came into play later in life. You know, the organization and the need to coordinate things so that you always knew where to go back and put your hand on it.
Right.
Or you always knew how to send somebody else to go get it and put his hand on it.
Yeah.
You know, and that just manifested, man, you know, in when I went to the Marine Corps. Oh, that put the cap on it, baby.
Right.
That was it. I was in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam era.
Oh wow.
So, you know, and I was truly the Marine. You know, you can see I still iron my stuff, baby.
Yeah, keep it fresh. Keep it fresh, right?
you know. But again, the development, the organization, the need for organizational skills, not the demand, but the necessity of it to make something happen, was huge. And it did, and it worked. And, you know, I went about it, went through it with ease, as I do today, at my young age.
The young age, right? Yes.
You know, and it just developed, and it went on from there to doing shows and stuff in Vegas, and eventually getting to meet different promoters, and again, chance meeting, as I say, those chance meetings.
Yeah.
By chance, I'm in this promoter's office. We're doing a show, and you know, by chance, he wants to talk about the show that we were doing, and I'm thinking it was I think it was Costa Zoo and Zab Judah or De La Hoya, one of them. But I'm in there talking to him, and I happen to be in his office when he gets a call. And he says to me, he gets up, and he's talking, and he tells me not to leave, and he's talking to this guy, and he's talking, and he's talking, and he's looking. And I'm like, you know what? I got to roll up out of here, man. You know, I got to roll. So he said, wait a minute. So he sat me down. He said, listen, he said, I'm just on the phone with this guy that's getting ready to start this thing, and he needs good people. He needs somebody. So I want you two to meet. Now, if I wasn't in his office, chance meeting,
you wouldn't have met him.
I wouldn't have met him,
right?
Or wouldn't have got that offer. And the guy he was talking about was Dana White.
Wow.
Chance meeting. So he set up a meeting, and a day or so later, we had the meeting, and I met Dana. Right. And he said to me that, you know what, I'm going to possibly do a show. Now, this was, again, don't hold me to these dates. You can't, you know, when you get past 50, you can't hold people to those dates.
And plus you've been around those years of different events.
Real,
You're like, I can't remember everything.
So I think this was either it was October of 1999 or October of 2000. But he was doing his show, the next show. Now, I think UFC 30 was either February of 2000 or February of 2001. But he said, I'm going to be doing a show the first of the year. And, you know, and my thing was, you pay me and respect me, you got me.
Yep.
Plain and simple. No other. That's all it was.
That's all I took. Right.
You know, UFC 30 was the first show that I did.
Wow. That's
in Atlantic City.
Damn. That's crazy. Wow. I just want to say thank
that was crazy.
Yeah.
That's a good journey, though.
Yeah, you did everything in your career pretty much. That's good.
Yes, sir.
But I just want to say thank you for your service, by the way. That means a lot.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that, and you know, I'm proud of my country.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of the service and everything that it stands for. You know, it's not a strong belief. Yeah. It's that I did it.
Right.
And I had a reason to do it.
Right.
And just went through it and did it, and you know, and it's still moving and it's still going. We'll get there.
Yeah.
You know, COVID kind of kicked us in the ass, but
but we'll get back there. Yes.
I've been through that too. You know, this is not the first time that we've had a situation where the world had to stand still or stop. It's probably the first time that it stopped everybody as massively as it did. But you know, we've had wars.
Yep.
You know, in my lifetime, we've had them. I won't say I wasn't around for the Civil War, but we've had wars. You know, we had 9/11.
Yep.
You know, we had SARS. It's been, you know, now you're really hitting on it, because my heart is my country and my life, and the things that we go through, and how we should accept things and listen to things, and you know, when you're in the military and you go to Nam, you know, or any place like that, you're there as a team. Yeah. You're there as a group. You didn't ask how or why. You did it because you know you had to do it to survive.
Yep.
Right.
And you did that. And whatever it was, with whoever it was, whoever was there, you know, if you didn't go along with the program, you got your ass whooped. I don't know if I can say that on your program, but I.
No, it's okay. You're good. You're good.
You know,
don't censor yourself, right?
But you just went through it. You just did it, and you did it, you know, with conviction and no second thought, no hesitation. So they pretty much got me trained to listen to certain things and get things, but I'm also a strong believer. You don't get old being a fool, bro.
Yeah.
trust me.
Yep.
You know, an old fool is a no fool.
Yes. Right.
Okay. And my mom used to always say, nothing from nothing leaves nothing.
Yep.
So
I've heard that one. Nothing plus nothing means nothing.
leaves nothing.
Yep.
You know, so it was, you know, it was a journey, and I ended up, you know, with the UFC as a coordinator.
Yep.
And coordinating all of their events. And it was, I think the best part of that was that I was given the task of getting the job done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And not told how to do the job, but given the task of getting the job done. But, you know, for me, I was ready to roll, baby.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming from boxing, and you were just right.
Oh yeah.
Transition, right?
Oh yeah. It was in there, and that's, you know, when you deal with people, kids, and you guys, your generation.
Right.
To me, they're kids. They're my kids. So when you deal with them, you got to know. You got to know how to roll. You know, you got to know how to do things and get things done without being offensive to someone.
Yeah.
Or without making someone feel disrespected. And I managed to do that, you know, with Roy Jones, Sugar Ray Leonard, you know, Mike, you know, Randy Couture.
Big personalities.
Tito Ortiz.
Some of
big
personalities.
Layla Ali.
Yeah.
You know, you learn how to do that without being disrespectful.
Right.
And guess what, man? You get respected. That's why I got this, you know?
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, so I gotta ask you though, what was the experience like working in the UFC business? Obviously, hey, I just want to say thanks for tuning into my Carrie and Brian interview. I had her on the show, and obviously you connected with her well. And what's it like being connected with Carrie Ann? I also had Frank Edgar on the show too, so another great.
My man, yeah. One of my kids.
Yeah.
And Karen, one of my kids.
Yeah.
It was an awesome experience because I was with UFC 30.
Right from the beginning.
Which was the first Zuffa that started where they are now. So everybody that came in, or everybody that I got, regardless, they came to me, they were rookies.
Yeah.
Period. If you can imagine, George St. Pierre was a rookie.
Right.
Frankie Edgar was a rookie. Karen Bryant was a rookie.
BJ Penn, all those guys.
Was a rookie.
Yeah. All those greats.
You know, Randy Couture was a rookie.
Yep.
You know, but I got them, and they were, but aside from them all being rookies, I accepted them as my kids. They were all very high-level professionals. Karen was a high-level professional. And she was a woman that was put into a position with a lot of men and had to perform.
Right.
And I'm just saying that I know how tough that is in any sport that's different than what you're used to. You know, let alone if you get into a sport with a lot of men, young men, and you're a female or whatever, but to get into that sport or start with the UFC with all these kids coming in as rookies, man. And I mean, they all could fight, but they all also wanted to be there. They were all very glad that they were there, because initially it was really tough. I remember the first 4 or 5 years. I mean, from UFC 30 to UFC maybe 45 or so, they were trying to become accepted with the state commission, because every state didn't accept it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you know, we had senators. You know, I won't name any senators because I don't want to spot any names. But we had senators calling us cockfights and dog fights. And
I remember that.
I had the same thing with boxing. In boxing, man, you know, a lot of my heroes thought that boxing with gloves on was brutal.
Right.
So I've always been under that scope. But then when you know, boxing, they work out with 16-ounce gloves,
right,
or 12-ounce gloves, and then when they got in the ring, if they were little guys, they went 8 or 10 or 10-ounce heavier,
right,
for the big guys.
Yeah.
And then I went from boxing to MMA, where there was damn near hardly no kind of gloves. Okay,
yeah.
The glove went from 16 ounce to 4 ounces.
4 ounces, yeah, 6 ounces, something.
You know,
yeah.
so it was, you know, it was, and not only were they punching, but they were kicking and choking. You know, and I had no idea
right,
of what mixed martial arts was.
mm-hmm.
I knew Bruce Lee and Bruce Leroy.
Mm-hmm.
That was as much as I knew. You know, so to see these guys, and we went from a ring to a cage. That was the transition.
Mm-hmm.
See these guys that were hitting and kicking and elbowing and, you know, the grappling. And to me, it was wrestling. But I learned to stop saying wrestling.
Right.
It was grappling.
Yes.
But I also, having my background that I had the thought process to pay attention and to see exactly what it was and what it took to do that, and how technical that was.
Right.
Man, you know, you go from an underhook to an arm bar, or a side mount or a top mount, you know, to a rear naked. That's skillful.
Yeah.
You know, and not only is it skillful getting in there, it's skillful keeping the guy from putting you in there.
Yeah.
Okay. So I respected that.
Right.
And all of these kids that came in to me, which I was a rookie and they didn't know, because I couldn't show it. Okay. Right. You don't need all rookies running the house.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. So, need some veterans in there. Yes.
Right. But I was a rookie. I was totally a rookie. I had no idea. But I knew how to coordinate and organize, and I knew how to respect the athletes.
Right.
So I put that stuff out front first. I first let them know, hey, whatever it is you're doing, I'm going to learn how to do it, and I'm going to learn how to work with it. And I'm going to always respect you.
Right.
So that means you can never, ever disrespect me.
Yeah.
You know what? And we got it made.
Yep.
And we did that, and it was very special, because we went to, you know, I think from Atlantic City. You know, we went from Atlantic City to Chicago to Texas, and then the United States started opening up a little more, and sanctioning bodies started accepting it. There were 3 governing bodies that were very important for boxing back in the day.
Right.
And that was Atlantic City, New York, New Jersey, and Las Vegas. If they accepted you, then everybody else kind of waited for them, because their rules were, you know, they had the biggest set of rules and the largest set of rules.
Right.
You know, so we started getting that, and it started getting accepted, and those states started accepting it. You know, and the next thing I knew, I'd go to sleep in Chicago and wake up in Brazil, go to sleep in Brazil and wake up in Japan, go to sleep in Japan and wake up in China.
Oh.
It started all over, man.
Right,
and
right.
it was awesome, because the talent level just got better.
Yeah.
If you can believe that. And I look at it now, and I can tell you the talent level. And guys don't like it when I say this, but I'm gonna say it.
Say it.
You know, when I come from a boxing background.
Yeah.
Right.
Hardcore boxing background. So I know, you know, I know what it is. I know, when you lead, you got to follow, and when you follow, you don't follow like this. Okay, you leave that out there. So boxing to me, that was my background, and when I went from there to martial arts and UFC, they were boxing, but it looked like they were boxing like this.
Right.
Because I was used to skillful boxing, and I didn't see that. But then UFC 30, UFC 35, UFC 40, UFC 52, it just developed.
The skills developed,
Man,
right.
The skills developed. I'm like, whoa. And then they started dancing around. Yeah, this is sweet. Take that with you.
Yeah.
It got nice. And then to put all of that together, to me, was amazing. To see physically, because I know what it takes, baby, to see a guy put all of this together, and then 1-2 bop, shoot, flip, leg sweep, boom. That was amazing. And I saw that development. And I saw the guys develop. And I saw the guys started really, really, it went from because initially it was a ground game.
Right.
Yeah.
And we sat there through 30 and 31. And it was like, most of the people in the arena were standing up because they couldn't see the guys because they were down on the ground in the corner. So when they went down, everybody stood up, and if you had them what you thought were good seats, they were no longer good seats.
Right.
Because everybody was standing. And the guys were, and they spent that whole round just about.
Right.
Then it developed. Started getting into striking, and putting strikes and leg kicks together.
Right.
And putting real stand up. I'm like, man. But I saw that development.
Wow.
And I was amazed to see it and to witness it. And now I sit back and look at it and do what I'm doing with you guys now and talking about it in interviews. And I see the young guys coming in now, and man, they coming in, they're ready.
Yeah.
They're boxing. And a lot of their training, you see them striking and hitting the bags and slipping punches. And, and I mean, it's not here anymore because they're going to shoot. It's here because they know.
Yeah.
They know how to do that. And it's been pretty awesome to see that happen and see the development, but also to see the development of the sport.
Right.
Because it was all boxing.
Yep.
And to see how MMA came in and it just flipped that around, and how these guys all became big stars very quickly. But a testament to the way they were originally put out there.
From the beginning. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely from the beginning.
So my next question would be, since you've done MMA, you've done boxing, so now the difference, like today, for today's boxers and today's MMA, just want to get your opinion on. We see in MMA and UFC, the best fights the best usually, and that's how Dana White and that's how the MMA is. But in boxing, sometimes it's more, I guess, politics, that you don't see guys fighting the best. Every once in a while, you might see that. What do you think of that? Like now that MMA has done, now back in the day, as you said, boxing, you saw those guys fight each other. You saw Hagler, Hearns, you saw Sugar Ray Leonard fight all those guys and everything else. And MMA, you see the best versus the best. What do you think is the difference of that from back in the day, that boxing used to be that way and now MMA is that way? And then can boxing get back to that?
Well, I'll actually say that with MMA, it was always like that.
Mm-hmm.
From the beginning, the one thing that I admired with MMA and Dana and the UFC, it was everybody fought everybody.
Yeah.
There was no ducking or dodging or not fighting. Everybody fought everybody.
Right.
You came in there, you were in there your second fight and you was fighting George St. Pierre. but George St. Pierre was also fighting you.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it was always like that. Boxing earlier back in the day, and no disrespect to boxing.
No, not at all.
But there was a time, there was a thing is you would build a guy, you had to build on a regional level and a lower level, you had to build a guy's record for him to get recognition to the next level. Recognition to be on television, or recognition to be looked at by the major promoters. You had to go in somebody's backyard and build his record. You know, and if you went into a backyard and they had 9 guys in there, you fought 9 of them and you came out of there either 9-0 or 6-3 or whatever, but that's how it went. And that was exactly what they had to do and how they had to do it.
Yeah.
But they also had a broader field and a lot of boxers to do that with. When it came down to MMA and UFC, there was not a lot of guys. There were a lot, but there wasn't as much as the pool you had in boxing. So when they got to MMA, these guys, everybody fought everybody. There was no, and I always liked that. It was like, man, This guy is 3-3 and he's fighting, but he's 3-3 and this guy over here is only 4-1. So they both had 4 fights. Okay, but it was always that way. And one of the things that I know, I'm not gonna say I think, I'm gonna say I know. So I'm gonna leave myself open for challenges. Okay, that I do know in working in boxing. I worked with Tyson and De La Hoya, Holyfield, Roy Jones, Bernard Hopkins. When those guys were at their peak, if everybody in that circle didn't know me, I couldn't get in there.
Right.
I couldn't get near that fighter. And that fighter didn't get near me. Right. But if they knew me, and I always wore this, okay, or always made sure I had on loud colors. Because if I walked away from you and you needed me, you needed to be able to see me.
Right.
Right.
If I was on the other side of the room. But in boxing back in the day, you couldn't get near those guys.
Right.
You really had to be somebody or know somebody to do that. In MMA, from the beginning, Anderson Silva, George St. Pierre, Randy Couture, Dana never held those guys from fans. Those guys would come check with me, check their weights, go do the paperwork, and write to the fans. And the fans would bug them to death from the time they left my office till the time they got to their room. That gave the fans a better appreciation of the fighter and of the fight. So with the fan being able to do that, there were times that I got off the airport and got to the hotel and got to the front of the hotel, and they were waiting for me because they knew I was coming.
Yeah. And
during the course of the week, they followed me because they knew at the end of wherever I went, there was going to be somebody. Okay. Well, so that was a very big difference that the fighters were given more access to fans in MMA than they were in boxing. And that, as a fan favorite, took the sport to another level. But it also opened up the base of fighters that they were using. They used a larger base. Back in the day, yes, we all knew Sugar Ray Leonard. We all knew Roberto Duran. Yep. And those guys. But those were 2. We didn't know the other 90 under them. Okay. I would do a boxing event, and I'd have a bout sheet. And you guys have been to events, you know what a bout sheet is.
Yeah.
I'd have a bout sheet with 11 fights on there. This is boxing now. 11 fights, and the only person everybody really knew was the main event, or unless you were a family member.
Right.
Everybody else, the other 10 fighters, you really didn't. But then in MMA, you had a bout sheet with 11 fighters. Everybody knew every single fighter on that card. They knew his grandmama's name. They knew his auntie Bess. They knew what kind of dog food he liked. Whatever, So those two things escalated and made a big difference.
Right.
And it happened that way. And thus the guys became very popular and are still, right now, in MMA, they know everybody. That helped the transition of MMA in the world of popularity to boxing. And when the guys retired, when De La Hoya and those guys left, that was a lot of the popularity and familiarity with the fighters left because you didn't know the rest of those guys yet. So they guys had to. It's changed a little now because, PBC and a couple of other networks
are
doing it a little better now. But MMA kind of took a hold of it and ran off with it.
Yeah. So speaking of the young generation, what do you like about the young fighters that are coming up now in UFC and boxing? Actually, speaking of Roberto Duran, I had his son on the show last year, Roberto Duran Jr., and he's a up and coming talent too. So what do you like about the young generation coming up now?
I think now it's what I do like is that the technical skill level of the younger guys now. Back in the day, you had to work on your record.
Yeah.
You had to fight guys to get to a certain level. Today, these guys come in from an amateur level and start fighting at a high level. They got this one kid now. I don't remember his name, but he's like 13-0, all first round knockouts, or 16-0 in all first round. These guys the athletes are the skill level is much higher. They're all of them have the intense skill level, and they're all made to fight.
Yep.
There's no more building a guy's record.
Right.
Because fans are on it and understand it and know it and ask for it. And I'm seeing that promoters are listening to the fans. Because when the fans it's very seldom that the fans today in boxing and MMA clamor for a fight, because it happens.
Right.
You always say, it'd be good if, and then boom. So the promoters are listening and making these guys fight. These guys are fighting, and these guys, they know. They believe me. In training, in the gym, and when you get into the ring or the cage, how skilled that guy is.
Mm-hmm.
From Jump Street. So,
yep.
But MMA has always been at a point where nobody got an easy fight. Everybody had to fight, and everybody knew how to fight, and you always got good fights. And today, I appreciate not only in MMA but in boxing as well, to see a lot of these guys, Lomachenko and even Canelo and Triple G, and these guys are fighting each other, and they're making good fights. And I'm just amazed with MMA, because I think, and you guys can correct me on this, I have seen more surprises in the last year in MMA, I think, than I've ever seen.
Oh yeah.
No, I agree.
I agree, because 2020 was a weird year for everybody, and even for
it's one of those things where you get in there, it's like, well, you know what? I don't think I want to see that one, because no, wasn't like that.
No, they all were. All those fights in the UFC, especially UFC, Fight Island, and they were unpredictable. You thought, like, okay, the favorite's going to win. Just like last week, you saw Conor McGregor lose to Dustin Poirier. Now, some had called it, said this is a rematch. It was years later, but McGregor hasn't fought. He's not as active as he was. So, I mean, what'd you think of something like that when a guy gets like upset? Or another question is, what do you think of the crossover too of boxing and MMA when we had Floyd and Conor McGregor? There's talks with Pacquiao, Conor McGregor. I think that'll be on hold for a little bit. But what do you think of them crossing over as well?
Well, if it's the one thing that I don't particularly agree with is a crossover. Mm-hmm. I don't agree with that because it's two different. Somebody has to give up something,
right,
to participate in it. Somebody has to give up something to maintain it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not, I'm taking my hat out of that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the level now and the way things are going, there's right now, you put certain aspect of it. I don't believe that time off really, really hurts a good fighter. A good person, a person that trains consistently and fights at a high level. I don't believe that maybe 5 or 6 years, okay. But 2 years, no.
Right.
I don't believe that hurts.
Right.
But like I said, you can put other things in it. Let me tell you something, baby. I want you to listen to this, okay? Sometimes when the lights go on, some people's lights go out.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They can get dim, but they can't go out.
Right.
The first fight that McGregor and Poirier had, the lights were bright.
Yeah.
Very bright.
Yep.
Conor was kind of used to those bright lights.
Yeah.
I think that was Dustin's first, not bright lights, but the brightest light.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, when I say put variances in those things, that's one of them. Sometimes the lights go on, some guys' lights go out. I've seen guys, you get 4 guys during the course of a week. You get the one that comes in that's glad to be there. Then you get the guy that's got to make weight. Mm-hmm. Then you get the guy at the weigh-in that's made weight or hasn't made weight. And then you get the guy fight night. Mm-hmm. And each one of those people are different. And until I get them in the dressing room and walk them out of the dressing room and get them in a holding area and I look in their eyes, I can see it. Mm-hmm. I can see it. I think that the very first time that Poirier and McGregor fought, the lights were very bright. And that was the first time Dustin was in those bright lights. On the other hand, those bright lights can spoil you. Mm-hmm. I'll leave that one alone. You play with that. And I've seen that happen. Right. That when those lights get that bright, sometimes you get a little spoiled after they stay bright so long, and you relax a little. Muhammad Ali relaxed.
Yeah. Right.
And he got caught. Sugar Ray Leonard relaxed, and he got caught.
Yeah.
Mike Tyson relaxed. I did the fight with Mike Tyson and Kevin McBride in Washington, and Layla Ali was on the card. That was probably one of the biggest shocks. That was as big as Buster Mathis when Buster Mathis beat Tyson. But you know what? Like I said, sometimes the light gets bright and people's lights go out.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So over the years, so let me ask you this. So what was it like working with Joe Frazier, the legend, and what did he bring to the boxing game? If obviously everybody knows about him, but I'm just saying for the people, most of the other people that didn't know about him, what did he bring to the boxing game? And for you, what is it like just being his manager throughout a daily basis?
The one thing that I saw with Joe, and it's something that I know that every trainer and every coach wants, is a commitment from his fighter. Mm-hmm. A commitment to train, a commitment to eat right, a commitment to live right, okay? And that was number one, because that living right, and I don't mean, when I say living right, I'm not necessarily talking about drugs and liquor.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But just living right, just knowing that you train and you got to stay healthy and you need to stay in the gym and you got to get on a regimen and a schedule and you need to stick to it. And the closer you get to a fight, the harder you do it. And the week of or so, you kind of relax a little bit. 2 days before, you're on fire.
Right.
And those are things that trainers and coaches and managers worry about or are concerned about with their fighters. I was never concerned about that with Joe.
Right.
Joe was always in shape.
Right.
And for that time, I was not his manager or anything, but around him and around he was always in shape.
Mm-hmm.
He was always conditioned.
Right.
And in those days, I can say that the majority of the top athletes, Joe Frazier, George Foreman, Ken Norton, Larry Holmes, Muhammad Ali, Sugar Ray Leonard, Roberto, they were always in shape.
Right.
And always conditioned and always committed to training and knew how important that was. Because when them lights got bright, they liked that.
Mm-hmm.
Then they liked to keep them on. Now, when Joe was done boxing, and that's why I told you I had to say to him, listen, you got to either hire me or leave me the hell alone.
Right.
Because I can't hang out like this anymore.
Yeah.
But he was as committed to not being in the ring as he was in the ring. And I saw that, and I was sometimes history has a way of making you a part of it without you asking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what history did to Joe and Muhammad and myself being around that time. I didn't know that time was going to be history.
Right.
I didn't know that the time of working around Joe and Muhammad, that one day I was going to do a fight with their daughters.
Right.
That was the furthest thing out of my mind. I mean, everybody was really looking for a Muhammad Ali Jr. or Marvis to take up Joe's slack, which Marvis did, until it got time and he fought Larry Holmes or Tyson, which was, at the time, Marvis was 19-0. He was undefeated.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's the commitment of those athletes and the commitment of what I see now with the athletes, male and female, Amanda, Cyborg,
yep,
Iron Lady.
Yeah. Valentina Shevchenko. Yes.
It's Joanna.
Yes, Joanna.
Jessica.
What's the young lady's name from Brazil? Jenny Andrade.
Oh, wait,
Andrade, yeah.
Oh,
Jessica Andrade, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, and then even
that was another.
Yeah, and then Jessica I too.
Yes, that was another thing that and that's why I don't like mentioning names.
Yeah.
Because I love them all, man, and I had every one of them. So I hate to miss. It's like somebody asking you how many kids you got, and you say 7, and you really got 12.
Right.
Because you forgot. You're like, oh shit.
I forgot somebody.
Somebody.
Yeah.
But to see that, and to have seen the development of them in sports and the development of women,
Mm-hmm.
I think that has been more of a surprise for me than anything.
Right.
When I say a development of, because in boxing, Christy Martin and Layla, they transcended and brought it on and brought attention to it, and then you come over here to MMA. It's I remember the first time I met Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
And that was my first female MMA, Ronda Rousey, Liz Carmouche.
Right. Wow.
And I had an easier time with those during the course of the week than I did with the guys. It was because I had a system and a schedule. And the very first time, but I also heard people say that women would never be in MMA. It would never happen.
Yeah, Dana White said that.
Yeah.
I didn't say that.
I mean, it's been reported. He said it himself. He said it himself. He didn't think that it would last.
And there you go. And then Ronda shows up, and Liz Carmouche shows up. You know, and Misha Tate and
Cupcake.
I don't want to mention names because when I miss a name,
Cupcake, Misha Tate, yes.
Hey, you know, when I see them, it's like, you know what? I heard you, and you didn't mention my name. but it's amazing how skillful that they became, and how it just, again, history having a way of making you a part of it without you asking.
Right.
And it did that. And I keep up with it now. You know, the young lady from China, who is awesome. Wei Ling, is it?
Yeah, Wei Ling, yeah. Oh yeah.
I keep up with it as much as I can now.
Yeah.
Because I'm now on another. I still do events. You know, occasionally I do events. I started to do my own promotion, and then got caught up in where we are today, and everything got canceled. So, and I had 3 dates canceled on me. So I started doing with you guys, you know, and now I do a podcast.
Oh, nice.
Legend to Legend, which I'm giving myself a dirty plug.
Yeah, plug your podcast. Yes.
You know, and it's where I actually sit and talk with guys who are legends, guys that have done this, and guys that I've worked with,
right?
That I know, you know, and I do it on MMA Junkie, and you know, I've got Randy and Chael and George and Matt Hughes.
Yeah.
Those are upcoming.
Yes. You have to get on DC MMA.
Oh man, you know, it's great because I talk to them. It's not an interview.
Mm-hmm. No,
it's OG chatter, baby.
Yeah, conversation. Yes.
Yeah. Because it's most of it. You know, is I did one with Chael and just telling you a little more of it, but doing an interview, and I'm talking and asking questions, and he says, "So Bert, tell him about the time you got mad at me for nothing."
And then that led to something else. Right.
Yeah. But I said, all right, you asked for it.
Yeah, right.
But it's legend to legend, and it's where I sit with these guys who are legends, and it male, female,
right.
And I'm broad in the sport. A legend is a legend, and it's very funny because I was doing Instagram Live.
Right.
And I'm talking, and I'm on it, and I tell you I got 5 grandchildren.
Yeah.
Who are very much into what Pop does, you know, that knows. And my grandson, the oldest one, graduated from Yale just recently, and I got 2 others headed that way, and William and Mary, which I'm very proud of my grandchildren.
Yep.
So I'm on Instagram Live. And one of them say, "Papa, why are you sitting on there by yourself?" I had no answer for that.
Yeah, right.
But it went, bling, the light went off.
Oh, man.
She said, "Why don't you just talk to somebody?"
Yeah.
So I called Vitor Belfort.
Oh.
I called him on the phone. I said, "Yo, man, I'm gonna get on Instagram Live. Will you come on with me?" And he said, "Oh man, hell yeah!" He said, "One legend to another legend. That'll be legend to legend." Cling, bell went off.
Right, and then the podcast.
You know, that was it. That was it. So, you know, but yes, I think that the difference now between now and then, you know, the commitment to the sport, the commitment to the craft. But I've seen a lot of that now, and you can tell with the finished product when these guys get in that octagon or get in the ring, because they all can fight.
Yeah.
Every one of them, baby.
Yeah. I got one more. I wanted to know what, like in 2021 now, what you see in boxing and MMA, which fights are you looking forward to? I know you said you still follow it and everything too, and you're still into it, but which fights would you love to see in 2021?
Well, in boxing, Canelo, Triple G,
the third one,
Lemonchenko, Garcia. I'd like to see Tony Garcia get another couple of shots up there, and Spence's on the downside of it. But those guys, I'd like to see them fight.
Spence Crawford, right? Yeah. And that's the one we were just talking earlier. You were saying the best fight the best. These guys are the best in that welterweight division. I mean, you still got others. Because I'm a huge Manny Pacquiao fan, so he's still floating around. And
float on, bro.
Float on. Get that money. Get that money, right? So I want to see those guys.
Until somebody beats him enough. Yep. And everybody always says, "Oh man, that guy needs to quit." That guy knows when to quit.
Yeah, he knows.
They know. Fighters know when they really don't have it anymore. Mm-hmm. Trust me. They may not say it to you, but they know it, and they know when to stop. In MMA, the one thing I can say is that MMA gives you the fights. The fights I've wanted to see, I've seen.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor did something unusual for that sport. Nothing unusual. I went through Muhammad Ali. I went through Mike Tyson, Sugar Ray Leonard. Yeah. So for somebody to be able to verbally, and antagonize, I know what that is because I learned from the best what that was. But he fought the guys that he talked about or the guys that everybody thought he should fight. They wanted to see him fight Nate. They wanted to see him fight Nurmagomedov. They wanted to see him fight. They wanted to see him, Khabib, and they wanted to see him fight Dustin. Mm-hmm. So he has fought them all. Mm-hmm. But he, and not just he, but we've seen Dustin fight who they wanted to see fight. We've seen Gaethje fight who they wanted to see fight. Yeah. Tyrone Woodley fight who they wanted to see.
Yep. John Jones fight.
Yeah, John Jones. Yeah. Now John Jones is talking about possibly moving up to heavyweight.
Yeah.
Adesanya, they want to see those.
They want to see I want to see that one. Yeah.
But and eventually
it'll happen.
They'll make it happen. They'll make it happen. Right now, I think that if John decides to go to heavyweight, I think he could be good up there.
Yeah.
Because he's always been a lot rangier than other guys. Mm-hmm. He's always been able to keep guys off of him and control the distance. And as a heavyweight, that's all you got to do. A little more so in MMA because you also got to keep them from putting their hands on you.
Right. Yeah, right. That's true.
You got to keep them from putting their hands on you. But you also got to know how to step back and put that knee in there. And he's very good at that.
Very good at that. What about Fury Joshua? That's the other one that,
Yes. Yeah. It's Fury. I think that when he fought Deontay Wilder, how I said about them lights getting bright?
Yeah.
I think the lights got a little bright for Deontay Wilder.
Yeah.
That was. I'm not saying that it was easy because Fury couldn't fight. It was easy for him. And I think a lot of them bright lights and Deontay maybe taking his eyes off a little bit.
Yeah.
That doesn't help. You can't take your eyes off it. That's like you being a guard sleeping. You can't go to sleep on guard watch, baby.
Right.
Nah, you gotta stay awake and keep your eyes on it.
Yeah.
But it'll sneak up on you anytime. And I gotta know that. That's how I got this.
Babysitter.
But it's Burt Watson now.
Yeah.
Right.
Burt Watson. So a couple more things here from me. So the $1 million. This is $1 million. Actually, $2 million questions. One, okay. Do you see McGregor going back to boxing?
No.
No.
I don't.
And I say no because I'm only thinking financially.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
Boxing has to be able to pay him. McGregor is not going to take a pay cut to do something.
Right.
And he shouldn't take a pay cut to do something.
Right.
And right now, I don't think, unless it's a Floyd again, which, you know, they could possibly make that happen, there is really no reason for him to go back there from a financial standpoint.
Right.
I think that him and Floyd got enough out of it. And right now, for him to really get out of his lane, it would have to be, the money would have to be right. But he's also got to straighten this lane out.
Yeah,
okay?
Yeah, I was thinking that same thing.
He got to straighten that lane out a little bit, you know, because he hasn't had, you know, the last 2 or 3 fights. He's got to straighten that lane out. So no, I don't see him going back to boxing unless it's a humongous. Some promoters go someplace and find a lot of money to make him do it.
Yeah.
So, and the other $1 million question: have you been on Joe Rogan's podcast yet?
Have I been on Joe Rogan's
podcast?
No, I haven't. But there's something in the works on that.
Okay.
I spoke. Not saying that I'm going to be on his podcast. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying that I communicate with Joe.
Okay.
And I have communicated with him within the last. I spoke to him maybe about a month and a half ago. You know, I do a podcast. You know.
Yeah, legend to legend, as you said.
You know, but he's, you know, I'm amazed and proud of him. I wish I had taken the route he took, because that $100 million is a nice payday.
Yeah, right.
Nice payday, but he earned it.
Yeah.
I forgot, what was the show he had on television when they was eating worms?
Oh,
Fear
Factor. Yeah.
I was hooked. I was hooked. I watched every one of those things, man.
Yeah.
I didn't miss it. And then I would watch them and then go be with him.
You're right.
You know, and have questions and like, because I'll tell you how smart he was. He would set up a show wherever we went for the UFC. So on a Friday night after the weigh-in, he'd have his comedy act someplace in that city.
Right.
And that was brilliant. That was a brilliant move. And so I after the weigh-in, and I got to make sure everybody was right, I made it to 2 of his shows to see his act. And I was the first time I'd ever, 2 people I've been to see in comedy, Joe Rogan and Richard Pryor.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And
huge difference in contrast too. For comedians.
Richard Pryor was the only comedian that I knew that I really wanted to listen to, you know, because he was dirty.
Yeah.
And he gave you the dirty.
Yeah.
You know, Bill Cosby said the same thing my mom say, and you had to be right and be nice. Mm-hmm. But Joe Rogan, I went to a couple of his shows, and he was always awesome and developed his skills and his talent. And I'm going to tell you this, and then I'll. Joe Rogan gave me this name, Babysitter to the Stars, and I'm going to try to be nice when I'm saying this.
Yeah.
So, as you guys know, I did the weigh-ins.
Yep.
And I was always on stage.
Mm-hmm.
I opened the show, did my yelling, did my screaming, and I got everybody all psyched, pumped up. You know,
you got them wild up.
Yeah, that's what I do and why I do it, baby.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Nobody does it any better. Okay. Anyway, so you know, I would get on the stage and they would yell and scream, and you know, I'd come up. So one day, somebody shows me an article where they did a survey. And the survey was, who had the best job in the UFC? Now, I've never said this to anybody. You're the first one that I'm saying this to.
Okay. All right.
All right. Let's go.
So they said,
breaking news.
It was like, who had the best job in the UFC?
Right.
and the scale was, oh, Dana White has the best job in the UFC. He's got all the fighters. He's the man, and he's the yada. And the next one was, no, Joe Rogan is the best and the most favorite guy in the, not Joe Rogan, Joe Silva was the best and the most favorite guy in there. That was the third. The fourth was Joe Rogan, was the best and the most favorite guy in the UFC. The fifth guy was that black guy up on the stage. It was, what? The black guy on the stage, he's got the best job in the UFC. He knows everybody.
Right.
So one day at the weigh-in, you know, we meet behind the curtain with the fighters and we're lining up. So I went up to Joe Rogan and I said to Joe, Joe, I'm tired of being that black guy that stepped up on that stage.
Right.
We got to work on that. And Joe, and he looked at me, he said, don't worry about it, I'll fix it. And went up on stage, and when I walked up, Babysitter to the Stars. Ding!
There it is.
Babysitter to the Stars.
Wow.
And it stuck. That's how I got this name.
Right.
And it stuck. But it's stuck. It's stuck. Babysitter to the Stars. Then it got to a point where I'm like, my name is Burt Watson. My name is not Babysitter to the Stars. My name is Burt Watson.
Right.
So I went from the black guy on the stage, the Babysitter to the Stars, me saying,
and now your government
my name is Burt Watson. So now, you know, everybody who knows me as Burt Watson.
Watson, right.
And that's my God-given, that's my name.
And the rest is history, right?
So before we let you go, would you like to say anything to all the nurses, doctors, and essential workers right now?
Well, the only thing, and I started this program saying that I was respecting the science and respecting the medical word and advice. And I can't say enough of how much I appreciate them and those who are in that profession and working hard every day and trying to save lives, because most of those people can't see their families and leave here without seeing their families. So my hat's off to you. And I appreciate everything that you do. Just keep rolling. And I wish that when they get there, man, I could be there one time to get them psyched up and get them pumped up, give them that we rolling before they go out on that floor. But nothing but love for you, baby, and I'd appreciate everything that you guys do. Appreciate it.
Well said. And there it is. That wraps up episode 681 for the NR Hour Sports Show with Burt Watson. Man, what a legend. You're obviously UFC coordinator for 15 years, and obviously the former manager for the legend Joe Frazier. So keep up the great work, man. This is truly an honor. We'll be posting this on all social media formats, and keep up the great work.
Great stories, man. Definitely love them.
Well, and also you can find me on all social media. Please, I love it when you follow me, especially go to my YouTube page. I'm just putting that up. You know what it is, baby. It's Burt Watson for real.
Yeah.
You go to work.
Follow.
You know what that means. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Appreciate the stories.
Oh, I